In the heart of upstate New York, the sprawling Blake estate stood as a monument to wealth and silence. Richard Blake, a man of 62, lived in its perfect, unchanging rhythm, a life untouched by friction since his wife's passing. The staff moved with near invisibility, each a silent cog on a meticulously crafted machine. The youngest of them was Amara, the housemaid, soft-spoken and easily forgotten. She moved through the halls like a ghost, never speaking unless spoken to. To Richard, she was just another part of the estate's flawless operation. That was, until the night he saw her studying. He had woken at 2:15 a.m., a dry-mouthed habit born of restlessness. A faint sliver of light beneath the kitchen door broke the house's sacred hush. Curious, he padded barefoot down the grand staircase. He expected a forgotten light, perhaps a flickering bulb. What he found was Amara, sitting at the marble island under the stark overhead light. She was hunched over thick textbooks with titles like Advanced Human Biology and Fundamentals of Organic Chemistry. A pencil was tucked behind her ear, and her lips moved silently, repeating anatomical terms. Amara, his maid, was studying medicine. Richard cleared his throat, and she jumped, her eyes darting up to meet his for the first time. They were dark, large, and filled with a deer-in-headlights intensity. "I'm sorry, sir," she stammered, scrambling to her feet. "I didn't think anyone know," he said, raising a hand. "It's fine. I was just coming for water." She nodded quickly, but he stopped her from leaving. He poured his water, then glanced at her books. "What are you working on?" She hesitated, her hands knotted in front of her. "An entrance exam," she said softly, "for an online pre-med program." He blinked. "You want to be a nurse?" Her head lifted slightly. The fire in her eyes was not rebellion, but purpose. "A doctor," she said. He didn't respond, his mouth opening slightly before closing. He simply nodded, set down his glass, and said, "Don't let me disturb you." He walked away, but the image of her, a soul fighting for something more, was a thorn in his consciousness. For the first time, he saw her, not as a servant, but as a person. Richard began to notice her in the daylight, the way she handled fragile china, the slight smile when she saw sunlight hit a stained glass window, the quiet she sometimes made. He began to question things he had long held as true, things he had inherited like wealth, assumptions, and blind spots. He began to wonder about her dreams, not the ones she chased at night, but the ones she had as a child. One afternoon, he overheard her on the phone, her voice hushed and trembling. "I can't lose this job. Maury, if I pass, then maybe, just maybe. But if I fail, then what was it all for?" Her fear, layered in sacrifice, settled in his chest. That night, he couldn't sleep. He opened his laptop and searched for the program she had mentioned. He found a tuition course that was steep for anyone earning minimum wage and no scholarships listed. He closed the browser, unsure of what to do. The next week, he saw her again, late at night, crouched by the laundry room. He cleared his throat softly, and she looked up, startled. "May I ask what drives you?" he asked, the words foreign in his own mouth. She hesitated, then lifted her chin. "When I was 10, my father died in our home. There was no doctor in town. I sat beside him 4 hours. I swore I would never feel that helpless again." He said nothing, because he didn't need to. In her voice, he heard the echo of something long buried within himself, a grief so vast it had frozen him 4 years. He turned and left her. But that night, in the solitude of his office, he pulled out a sheet of paper and began to draft an inquiry, not to her school, but to his lawyer. He was creating the beginnings of an anonymous scholarship fund. He didn't know why, not really, but a whisper inside him said that the smallest light could alter the shape of an entire room. The acceptance letter arrived on a rainy Thursday. Amara found the envelope, with its university seal, tucked into her cubby. She retreated to her small room, her hands trembling as she read the words, "Accepted." Tuition covered, a monthly stipend provided. Relief washed over her, but it quickly gave way to a fresh wave of panic. To attend the program, even online, she would need time. time she spent scrubbing floors and ironing sheets. Her stipend wouldn't be enough to send money home to Baton Rouge, where her mother and younger siblings still relied on her. The structure that supported her family would collapse. She folded the letter and put it away. For the rest of the day, she moved through her tasks like a ghost, her heart pinned beneath a choice she had no luxury of making. That evening, Richard noticed the slump in her shoulders, the defeat in her eyes. He had assumed giving her a chance was the hardest part. He hadn't considered she might refuse to take it. The next morning, Amara appeared at his study door, a thin manila envelope clutched in her hands. "I'd like to speak with you, Mr. Blake." She looked at him, her eyes steady. "Was it you?" "Yes," he said. "I'm grateful," she said, after a long pause, "but I don't think I can accept it." "Why?" he asked. "My family depends on me," she said. "If I take this chance, they lose everything." "What you call selfishness," he said, "I would call courage." Her eyes glistened. "They need me more than the world needs another doctor." "You've spent your life giving," he said. "If you sacrifice your dream for survival, you'll keep surviving, but you'll never live." He looked at her, his voice quieter now. "I'm not asking you to abandon them, but maybe it's time someone else helped carry the weight." She sat frozen for a moment, then slowly placed the envelope on the table. "I've never heard anyone say that to me before," she whispered. "You do," he said gently. "You've just never had permission to believe it." She opened her eyes, and a slow, solid nod began to take shape. "I'll try," she said. "I don't know how yet, but I'll try." 4 years later, Amara stepped out of a modest black sedan onto the familiar gravel path of the Blake estate. She had been gone for 4 years, and the girl who used to mop these floors was no longer here. She was now a doctor, her white coat crisp, her future built not on charity, but on strength. Richard, looking a bit older, but with a warmth in his eyes, met her at the door. They sat in the winter garden, sipping tea. "I kept all your letters," he said. "When the house gets too quiet, I'll read them again." She told him about her final exams, her clinic rotations, the residency interviews lined up across the country. She spoke of the patients whose hands she had held, the sleepless nights, and the moments when her purpose felt like an unbreakable shield. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving?" She looked out at the garden. "No," she said, "because on the way back, I found myself." Before she left, she told him she was opening a clinic in Queens, New York, for people who couldn't get seen anywhere else. "You'll need support," he said. She smiled. "I have it." He gave a small nod. Then the world just became a little better. She stood there for a moment, then walked down the path, her stride calm, unhurried. Back in his study, Richard looked at the letters on his wall, faded, but no less true. They were evidence of something sacred. He no longer thought of legacy in terms of empire or wealth, but in terms of a story, the story of a girl who had once sat at his kitchen island and, with a quiet strength, had begun to build a future. He smiled, and for the first time in years, the silence in the house didn't feel empty. It felt full.